Alrighty, I think we are live. And yeah, we got some people on the stream. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please do let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. You can leave any feedback in the chat section. Yeah, feel free to engage with me as we go through today's section. If we're just meeting, hello, my name is Varma Henry, and I'm the founder of DoBetterUX.com, a place where we really want to be able to create a community of user experience designers, product designers, and design thinkers that can share and interact and help each other to get better faster. So if you're just joining us for the first time on this live design streaming session, we do this every week. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. That way you get notified every time that we put an event up. Usually we try to do it on Thursdays, but because we live in South Africa and there's other things to worry about like load shedding and a bunch of other things as well, we might not always do it on Thursday. So if you subscribe, you know exactly which day we'll be doing it. Yeah, so please let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Please feel free to say hello, let us know where you're joining from. I see on the event invite over on LinkedIn, there are a lot of people that have accepted who are already in the UX design field. So just to start off, I wanted to say that this event today really speaks around people who are getting started in UX design. If you're somebody who knows somebody who's getting started in UX design, or if you're just interested, right, in the conversation, feel free to tag along. Let us know what you think. Feel free to give some of your suggestions. I was not reading the comments last week, and I felt so much like an idiot because there were some great comments coming through, and I quite missed some of them that were quite important that I wanted to cover. Right, so I'm looking at everything today. I'm monitoring everything. I'm making sure that everything is set and ready to go. Anyway, how is your Thursday going? It's almost the end of the week. Let us know general stuff about yourself. Introduce yourself to the Do Better UX Design community over on our LinkedIn group. If you're joining us not from our LinkedIn community, I know most of the people are joining us from our LinkedIn community, or even if you saw this event on LinkedIn and you want to join the rest of the community, you can look for the Do Better UX group. There we share other things. We sort of like share different things, updates of upcoming things, like progress on things like our website that we just released this week. Go check it out. It's still in progress, but let us know what you think. So if you go to DoBetterUX.com, you'll see the new version that we're currently working on and in the rollout of new features over the next 2 coming weeks. So yeah, join us, become part of the conversation. This is a global group, so feel free to join us from wherever you are in the world. We really just want to create a place where we can share skills and have a conversation around doing better UX design. Kajisto says the audio is a bit unclear. Don't know if it's just me, though. Just put things up a little bit. I just turned it up a little bit, a notch. Please let me know how that sounds. I hope that sounds much better. If it doesn't, let me know. I don't know what else to do. But yeah, I've put up the volume. Please let me know if that sounds good. So let me jump into today's session without wasting too much time and keep on blabbering about other things that you're actually not here. I know that you're here for the conversation today, and we will be talking about getting started in UX design without a design background yourself. So I've got this question a lot from a lot of people. It's more static rather than volume. That's very strange. I'm not sure if it's you, Kahiso. Could be something, maybe a connection or something on your side. I can monitor myself. I can hear everything is fine. So I hope it's not really a mess and everybody can has this big static that Kahiso is talking about. But I'm gonna continue anyway. I hope at least it's audible enough for you to hear me and at least follow along. Um, so I hope you can still participate in the conversation. So um, so there's so much happening within the design space, and I wanted to start off by talking about what do UX designers do, from the top of my mind, and just to introduce people who are getting into UX design into what are some of the things that UX designers do, and what would you be expected to do if you became a UX designer. I think the purpose is to also try and achieve a little bit of exploration around the different things that UX designers do, and take away some of the typical, what can I say, pre-notions around what people think UX designers do, right? So the first one is that I think a lot of people know this, is that UX designers don't just design pretty pictures. In fact, in the previous, one of the previous live streaming sessions that we had, I was talking about the fact that most of the UI design and user interface things have been solved over the years with design system kits and UI kits that are around the world, as well as just people generally knowing how to use good products. I mean, people have been using products and they know what works or not. It's not like back in 2004 where we didn't have so much digital products and apps on the market. So these days people are better familiar with what good products look like, and they can really dive into problem solving and not just putting the pictures together. So the first thing that I want to get out of the way is that yes, there are UX UI designers, people specialize in UI design, which is something that I'll cover in the next section of this conversation. But UX designers are not just making pretty pictures. You're really looking and talking to people who are solving big problems for people and communities, as well as businesses and other situations as well. So UX design is a very fast problem-solving discipline that can cover a lot of things, but at the core of it is really about understanding the person that you are designing for in different aspects, and bringing all that information and intelligence and problem-solving skills together to create a solution that will make business successful, and also help the person that you're designing for to achieve what they're trying to achieve, right? Like whether it's an entertainment goal, whether it's a need that they actually have, whether I want to purchase groceries and it's COVID time and I don't want to go in the store, and all of those different scenarios, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that UX designers are really about is that UX design is not really about the design itself. It's about what to design, rather. So you find a lot of people being caught up in, oh, the user experience is not so good, and they're really talking to the user interface rather than the user experience itself. So you find, there's this big notion around how the thing looks, and, that is, what UX design is about, and it's not really about that. It's about what to design, where to put the different screens and the pages and the flows, etc., etc. So it's more about what to design rather than the design itself. So Again, I will explain more why this is important for people who don't have any design skills, because it's really about identifying what to design, and the right people who have the right skills within your team, whether it's other UI designers or even external people, can be forwarded sort of like a recipe to be able to implement in a design fashion. And lastly, around the thing that I wanted to highlight around what UX designers do is that really UX designers or product designers, whichever role, I will go into a couple of roles in relation to what skills play in those roles. That way you can sort of like start seeing fit and placement to some of to what you want to do as a UX designer and how you want to navigate your career there. So we'll cover that in a bit. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about is that UX designers are really, data analysts, analysts of data and behavior. They are problem solvers, they are thinkers, they are facilitators, they are people who really help you drive the conversation and join the voice of the user and what the product is trying to do, and put those things together and come up with a solution that's solid. So UX designers are analysts of data and behavior, problem solving people and thinkers and facilitators. That is a really well-rounded definition I would put as what UX designers do. So those are the things that I wanted to quickly cover as the first part of this conversation. Again, if you're joining us, please, we had a little bit of audio interference in the beginning. Please let me know if there's still any interference or if that might have been solved. One of the people, Kahisho, was saying there's a little bit more static on the stream, and I hope that is not for everyone. So, if you're just joining us, welcome to the stream. We're talking about getting started in UX design today without any specific design skills. I have just covered a little bit around what UX designers do. If you want to play back that, you can watch this, after the fact. You can watch the replay. There's also a couple of other content that we have on the channel that speaks to what is UX design, what do UX designers do, etc., etc. So there's a lot more content that you can find on this channel, as well as on our website, dobetterux.com. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Feel free to interact with us in the chat section. I'm going to jump on to the next part of the conversation today, which is I wanted to talk about the different practices of UX design, or product design rather, depending on different lenses that you might want to look at it. I think product design is really the new, more commonly used term of what a UX designer is. But I wanted to talk about what are the different roles that you can find in UX design, and what sort of like skill sets to some of those things. What are some of the skill sets that are attached to some of those roles that you might have that can help you with navigating your UX design career to get to maybe focus on that role first as an easier way to learn to get into UX design, and then you can progress your way up to something that maybe you might desire more but don't necessarily have the skills at the moment. So you can sort of like work your way through, but the advantage will really be you're using your current skills to get into the field, and that way you'll be able to learn new things. So your learning curve is really not as steep as anybody else who's coming into UX design and is not navigating the UX design, their UX design career path in a specific way that they can leverage the current skills that they have. So I'm going to start with just the basic title of a UX designer. I think the basic UX designer is usually expected to look at wireframing, look at user flows and things like that. Look at user research methods, so things like user interviews, etc., etc. I would describe a UX designer as a person who is a people's person, somebody who likes speaking to people and finding out a lot of things about different people, somebody who's not scared to go out in the field and do user research and speak to actual users of the product, do prototype testing, etc., etc. So those are some of the things that you might be expected to do. So if you're coming from a background where you were working maybe in an IT background and you're building flows, or maybe working in some of project background where you are building any type of flows around the processes and the things that are happening in a business, being a UX designer really speaks to that really speaks to some of the understanding around how user journeys would look like and how they would work, and mapping those out to be a much more understandable thing to get into, as well as if you're a people person, if you just like speaking to people, if you're like an outspoken person, not necessarily an extrovert, but you like to engage with people and finding out more about what their needs are and what their problems are, it will be a great place for you to be able to empathize with the people that you're designing with, and then that way you'll be able to really ask the right questions and take out the right information and translate that into the product that you're trying to design at the end of the day. Again, UX designers are not user interface designers. Some of them play the role, play both roles, sort of like the user research, the wireframing, and the flows, and all of that stuff, as well as the user interface. But I always like to look at user interface designers as something that is different and is usually put in the role of the UX unicorn, which we'll talk about in a short moment. So that is the UX designer, and segue into the next role that I want to talk about, which is a product designer, which is a more common terminology of what we traditionally knew as a UX designer. I think the more, the extra added little bits around, UX designer and getting into product design is things like really being able to facilitate workshops and conversations around, developing the product, and not really just talking between you and your customer, but really being able to coordinate stakeholders, the project timeline itself, and other project moving parts. So you're really not looking at the part of the journey or the flow that you're trying to solve for, but you're looking at the product end to end. You're looking at the market fit. You're looking at is the writing okay? You're looking at all of the things. It's a more rounded type of designer when it comes to product design. I think in product design, product designers and product owners usually really work hand in hand. Sometimes it's the same person because you want to understand all the conversations that have to do with the product. So a product designer would sit in design meetings, they'll sit in tech meetings, they'll sit in sort of like executive presentations. One big thing about product design doesn't actually have anything to do with design, but it has to do with a lot of coordination and being able to facilitate decision making, being able to gather information, play it back, and get decisions made within the process that you're working in. So that's what product designers do. And if you're coming from a project management background, if you're coming from a background where usually sort of like any manager type of background, somewhere where you're used to coordinating the conversation between different people and different disciplines and bringing the picture together, this will be the perfect role for you, because that is mainly most of the stuff that you'll be doing. Of course, we'll talk about the basic UX skills and tools, sort of like the fundamental stuff that you need to learn, even if you have some of these experiences. They'll help you boost your starting point, but you really have to learn some of the basics that we'll talk about in the last section of this conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them up in the chat section. I'll be able to pick them up as we go through the stream. So we will be reviewing them as we go. I will see as they come in, play it by ear and see, what we need to answer and what's coming through. So that's the second role. The third role that I want to talk about is really the visual designer or the UI designer in this case. This is, another specialty in UX design. Of course, UI designers or visual designers are also expected to understand the solution and how everything works. And, you're not really put in a bucket, right? You can sort of mix and match depending on your background. But visual designers are usually people with design backgrounds and some sort of understanding of design language, colors, etc., etc. So I'm not going to get into that because we really want to focus on the roles in UX design that you might want to do if you're coming from a non-design background. So we're not going to cover visual designer, but it's definitely part of the list that I have here. The next one on the list is UX researcher. So if you're coming from a place where you're an analyst, you like researching, you like looking at data, you like looking at stats, you like speaking with people, gathering information, qualitative and quantitative data. If you understand that, then you definitely can be a UX researcher. So if you're coming from a business analyst role, a data analyst role, or any sort of analyst or research role, and you want to get into UX design, there's definitely a lot of capacity, or rather positions in the market where people are looking for UX researchers that can really crunch down numbers, being able to come up with identifying different trends and things like that for them to be able to figure out the different metrics that they need to look at and what those metrics are supposed to do. So it's a really important role in a lot of organizations, and if you're coming from any research or analytics background, being a UX researcher can be a very exciting job, and it can be a very interesting thing to get into without a lot of learning of other UX practices and skills that might be just fast. Some people think if you want to get into UX design, you definitely need to learn design tools and things like that. It's a good thing to have knowledge of them, but definitely not a prerequisite if you're doing something like UX research. The next thing is content or digital strategist. This is a role that we've seen coming into the UX space more and more, because we've seen that more and more people are getting into content marketing, are getting into creating communities around their brands and their products, and there is a whole digital strategy that needs to be played out when it comes to how you roll out the product into the market, how you communicate with the market, how you engage people, how you do all those things once the product is out there. So we're starting to see this content and digital strategist role, and I think if you're somebody who's coming from a marketing background, there's a lot that you can add in this environment. If you're coming from a marketing communications type of strategy background, there's definitely a lot that you can add in here when it comes to things like launch strategies, marketing strategies, content strategies that are just based around the product. We're seeing more and more companies starting to build communities as loyal customers, rather than the old-fashioned way of marketing where they'll just blast the main marketing channels like radio and TV, with less and less more of radio and TV and more of everybody being able to be on the same playing field, to be able to to get their product into the market. Bigger and bigger companies are starting to have more and more content and digital strategists. The next one that I want to talk about is what they call a UX engineer. This is basically usually like front-end type of developer people, people who have a lot of experience with CSS and things like that, as well as code. So if you're coming from a coding background and you're interested in design and things like that, there are a couple of things that you can learn, sort of like the basics of UX for you to play within this UX engineer role. The UX engineer role is a really high-paying role from what I've seen from companies like Google, Airbnb, Facebook, etc. And we're starting to see this role really being the future of UX design, because we want to get closer to people who can actually not just build prototypes and screens, but actually ideas that can be put in customers' hands as quickly as possible, and that way we'll be able to see what the customer's feedback is in real time as we build the features and put them in the product. There are also a lot of tools that are sort of like non-coding tools for designers that are coming out on the market that you can definitely use as well if you want to play in this space. But typically a UX engineer is somebody who has a background in coding and development and things like that, wants to apply UX design principles and techniques to write that code and build the products that they would typically just build from a prescribed strategy or journey, or they would receive a design from another UX designer. And then lastly, I want to speak about the UX unicorn. You will see this in a lot of places online. We're looking for a UX unicorn. This is a person who usually wears all the hats of what is mentioned above. So they're a visual designer, they're a UX designer, they're a product designer, they are a researcher, they do content strategy and digital strategy, they do a bit of engineering. I'm most of those except the engineering bit. I'm not a coder, but I come from a visual design background, and I quite know a lot about content creation as well for me to play in a digital strategy role. I know quite a lot about putting products into the market, getting market feedback, and really iterating on feedback and things like that. So I fit in most of those roles. So you might think of me as some sort of a UX unicorn, but that is what it really means. So if you want to be UX unicorn, this is unfortunately a role that I don't think you can get into when you're just getting started in UX design, because it morphs and merges all the different parts of being a UX designer, from just a typical UX designer to visual design to UX research, product strategy and things like that, as well as engineering as well most of the time. So those are the different roles that I wanted to highlight in this conversation. Obviously there might be more on the list. I mean, if you just go on LinkedIn and look at the different job profiles that are there, if you look out for things like product designer, visual designer, UX researcher, you'll start finding more and more job titles that have sort of like evolved from the UX designer role, that companies are looking for very specific, very niche things and a very specific set of skills as well. So if you take your time to look at some of those roles, you might find out that most of the things that they're looking for actually don't have anything to do with design. I always say to a lot of people, the word design in UX design or in product design usually misleads people, because I think 90% of the work that we do as product designers and UX designers is actually not designing. Okay, some people might call it the design process, right? I like to think of it as a problem-solving process more than a design process. There's definitely a lot of things, a lot of other things that I didn't mentioned on this list that you can focus on as somebody who's getting started in UX design with certain set of skills. If you look on job boards, you'll see all sorts of different roles within the UX designer, blanket, as we mentioned some of them here. And yeah, you can definitely find something that fits your current skills that you can apply, and then you can use that to kickstart your UX design career and not really start from scratch. You have a shorter learning curve to find a discipline that fits your current skills, and then you really figure out the basic other things that you want to figure out to get started, such as some of the UX tools and things that we're going to speak about now. But this will really help you, have a shorter learning curve to get to where you're trying to get to. Of course, you might be looking at a specific UX design or product design speciality that you might have to work your way up to, but at least you have a basic platform for you to apply the skills that you currently have now, and then work your way up there as you earn and learn along the way. So there's no point for you to actually wait to get to that speciality when you can use the skills that you have right now in a specific department or pocket of UX design as is. God, I've been talking for so long. I made tea before the session started, hoping that I can actually stop talking consistently and have some tea. Cheers. I hope you have something to drink. I hope you have something to enjoy while you're enjoying this live streaming with me. So again, if you are joining us or watching us halfway through, almost all the way through, today we're covering the topic on doing UX design without getting into UX design rather without a specific design background. So we covered what UX designers do from a very high level. We covered the different roles in UX design and some of the skills that are involved there. And we are going to get into the last part of the stream today. But before we get there, I wanted to share with you guys something that is super exciting for us here over at Do Better UX, and that is our latest website and our upcoming course, which is Kickstart Your UX Design Career. So if you go over to dobetterux.com right now, you'll be able to sign up for free early access when our course goes live. So I'm just going to share my screen here and show you our website, maybe in a jiffy, and show you what are some of the things that you will be able to find on the website when you get there, so that you can head over there. This is really the best place for you to be able to find latest things around UX design and other things that we speak about, as well as find latest events that we're doing. So again, we're launching a course in the next coming weeks, which is called Kickstart Your UX Design Career. We'll be covering what we're covering now and a vast lot more other things that you would need when getting started in UX design. So drop in your name and email address, and we will let you know once we go live, as well as get free early access to the UX design course. You will find typically UX design career insights over on our blog. We try and post quite regularly here on our blog. As you can see here, these are upcoming events and things that are happening. Today is UX design without a design background, and you can see our lineup of upcoming events, as well as listen to our podcast, which is called Not a UX Designer, where we publish episodes quite frequently as well, so you can see everything in here. So you can check out our blog, you can check out upcoming events, you can check out courses and other things that we have coming up. We don't only have have live design streaming sessions. As you can see here on our events, we have a meetup that we are launching later on in the next coming couple of months, as well as well, not in the next couple of months, on the 27th of May. So join us on the 27th of May for our first Do Better UX meetup, which will be virtual, of course, hashtag 2020, hashtag COVID. I wonder if YouTube is going to put that big COVID banner on the replay. But yeah, feel free to check out our website and interact with us in our communities and different social media channels. We're looking forward to hearing from you. We're looking forward to engaging with you as well. So if you're somebody who's watching this and you're a UX designer, or somebody who's in a more senior thing, or if you just want to share your story or your journey within UX design, or your product design journey, we're looking for people that we can have as guests here on the live streaming session, as well as our podcast. So feel free to reach out over our social media channels, and we can see what we can do, and arrange events that we can add on to the calendar. So going over to the last section of our conversation today, I wanted to talk about some of the basic tools and skills that you have to learn getting into UX design. I understand that you might have the skills that you have, but for you to really be able to understand how to apply those in a UX design environment, I wanted to just go through some of, three main points, really, of some of the things that I think you should get into. Even if it's a shorter learning curve, I think there will still be a learning curve for you, despite of which environment that you're coming from, even if it's like a visual design background, that is, and you don't have any UX design experience at all. Some of the things that are on this list are some of the things that I recommend you look into. There's a lot of materials and things that you can use to learn online, even on our website, that can direct you to the right, resources and materials. There's the search bar on the website, so you can just search for whatever it is that you're looking for. I'm sure you'll be able to get directed to the different places that we have, identified other resources online as well. So we're just trying to help UX designers navigate the UX careers a little bit better. We understand that there's a vast amount of information online, and sometimes it gets overwhelming to just process all of that and navigate all of the information you can find online. So most of the information that you find on our website will help you navigate your UX design career by helping you understand what things you need to learn depending on what you're trying to do within the UX design career context. So moving on along swiftly to the last section of our talk today. I think I'm just enjoying this so much, and I don't want it to end. To a point, actually, that I just don't want to talk about the last section, but let's get into it, right? Shall we? So I think the first thing is basic understanding of not only the UX design process, but the activities that you find in the UX design process, right? And the purpose you want to understand the different activities within the UX design process is that the UX design process is not a linear process, and you can pick different things according to the situation and what you're trying to achieve within your specific context and problem-solving things. So I always, as much as we're going to talk about, the design system process and frameworks shortly, I'm really a big fan of not being, sort of like detected what to do with frameworks and processes, but rather using them as a library that we can pick and choose different things that we want to apply and use for our specific context and our problem-solving situation. So if you look at the design thinking process, there are different things and different activities that happen in it. So if you search design thinking, you'll find some weird pictures like this. All of them have got a couple of things in common, which is really the main steps of empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Again, this is not a linear process, but in each part of these steps, if I can put them that way, even though they're not linear steps. There is different practices and methodologies and things that people put in there and do. Some of them old, some of them new, some of them work, some of them don't. If you look at our previous session around why UX design is dying, is UX design dying, we speak about some of the things that are not working, that have been sold by UX designers over the years, that are just, snake oil type of salesman type of things. But anyway, the design thinking process has got a couple of things that you'll find in it. And I would really urge you to learn the different things that you may find in it. So I think I found a better example here. So as you can see here, under empathize, we've got interviews, shadowing, seek to understand, non-judgmental, blah, blah, blah. So there's different pockets of different things that happen in each of these buckets. And I think it's more important to know all of those different activities rather than just the main process itself, because the process is not linear, and if you know the different activities, you'll be able to pick and choose according to the context that you like to apply them. So that is the first thing that I wanted to talk about, understanding the activities in the UX design process and when to use them. So once you start understanding what they are, you start understanding the different contexts where to use them, and when you're faced with that specific situation, you will pull in the right activity, not the whole process, right? I mean, if it accounts for you to use the whole process, then definitely go ahead if you have the time and capacity and all of that. But most of the time, we see that people try and get up caught in the process and not just use the different things that they can actually use at that specific time. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is a little bit around how to visualize your ideas. So the tools that will help you as a UX designer or product designer. These are digital use that will help you visualize your ideas. So I'm talking about whiteboarding tools such as Mural and Miro, recently added to the list that I'm really excited about from Figma. It's called FigJam. You can check out a previous session, the last session that we did covering the features of FigJam from Config 2021. So whiteboarding tools are your best friend when you are trying to run workshops online, when you're trying to do sort of like problem solving, brainstorming sessions with sticky notes and lanes and time and things like that. If you're somebody who wants to get into facilitation and run things like design sprints, for example, let's say you're somebody who wants to work really in that product designer space, and you want to help facilitate the conversation and how you get to the solution. Whiteboards will be like a big tool that will help you visualize the ideas, your ideas and other people's ideas, and put them together and have a place to work in. The next thing is really user interface tools, so things that will help you build wireframes, user journeys, and other things like that. And in the market, really, there is, I think the industry leader is again Figma at the moment, but people also use other tools like Adobe XD and Sketch, which Sketch for me is really a dying tool. Adobe XD has improved quite a bit over the years, and Figma is really at the pinnacle of the design game at the moment, I think. If you're using something else within your organization, please feel free to let me know in the chat section or in the comments, depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching us live or on the replay. But I would look at some of UI tool for me to be able to build some sort of, even if you want to get into visual design, right? Or if you don't want to, I think it's still a lot of value for you to be able to learn and get familiar with the tools that the designers will be using eventually to build the interfaces that you will be using. The last thing when it comes to other tools that I would like you to consider looking into is things like design kits and UI systems. So they call these design systems mainly. If you look for design systems, understanding how design systems work will really help you understand how the design will be put together, and you don't have to spend so much time and energy into trying to come up with new different layouts. There's a lot of different design systems that have been standardized over the years based on basic design languages like the Google Android mobile design language or the Apple iOS design language, as well as other web design languages as well. So if you go in and learn how these things look like and how they work, it will be easier for you to sort of learn how to put things together when it comes to putting out low fidelity prototypes, understanding basic components like tabs and scroll components and image components, etc., that are immediately available to your disposal, right? And you don't have to create from scratch. There are millions of okay, maybe not millions, thousands, I think definitely millions of kits and libraries that you can tap into out there, and it's really about learning how to understand and manage and adapt those things to your solution. Will help you get faster when it comes to things like prototyping and building wireframes and user flows, etc. And the last thing that I want to talk about before we close off today's session is frameworks for problem solving. So there's a lot of different frameworks for problem solving. My favorite one is Design Sprints from Google by Jack Knapp and John Kazaki, I think. Sorry, I totally butchered that. That's my favorite one, but there's a lot of sort of like problem solving frameworks that you can learn. There's a lot of different things that you can learn when it comes to problem solving and business conversations, like the Lean Business Canvas, etc. If you look at some of our previous live streams, we mentioned some of these things in detail and some of the frameworks that you might want to look into for you to be able to facilitate specific conversations and things like that to help you drive not only problem solving but more importantly decision making. So I think that's why I'm a big fan of something like the Design Sprint, because it allows not only for problem solving but for really deciding and moving forward to what do we actually design and deliver into the customer's hands. So that is the last thing that I wanted to talk about. So again, from the top, the three things I think is important for people who are getting into UX should learn is the basic understanding of the activities in the UX design process, not only just the process itself, but the activities that are in there and when to use them. The next thing is things like whiteboarding tools, things like UI tools. I recommend Figma and FigJam, but there's other things that you can use like Adobe XD or Sketch for UI tools. There's also other things like Miro and Mural for whiteboarding tools that you can use out there, as well as the last thing that I mentioned was frameworks for problem solving and decision making. So I like using the Design Sprint. You can check it out if you just search Design Sprint. You'll be able to find a lot of material on it and how it works, but there's also a lot of other frameworks that you can use out there that will help you with problem solving, decision making, generating ideas and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think as a recap, I think there's a lot of things that you can get into UX design even without a design background. We covered some major design roles here, and explained how you can attach your current skills that you might have to them. If you are coming from a specific background and you're not sure how to attach those skills, to a UX design background, and you think that your learning curve is going to be very long, please feel free to reach out to me over on our Do Better UX group, or just leave a comment or question in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this live or after the fact, and I'll be able to see how I can answer and assist you, and see if we can fit some of the skills that you currently have in a specific UX design role for you to be able to kickstart your UX design career in 2021. And having said that, that's it for me for this week's live design streaming session. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Please consider subscribing to this show if you enjoyed this session. If you'd like to find out more about what we do and things like that, we showed you our website. Feel free to go there. We'll be updating it over the next 2 coming weeks. So there'll be more and more interesting things that you will find there as time goes. We are looking to get more collaborations for our podcast and this live design streaming session. So if you also want to, collaborate with us, feel free to reach out and join our community. So until the next one, until next week, I'm out.